Welcome. I'm so happy to have you here for this very important dive into and look at the role of safety before we get into talking about any modalities, how to use them, what are the best ones. Safety is the foundation that needs to be in place before we get to work on other things. I'm happy you're here, and you only have to listen to this once unless you want to repeat. But let's really look at why is safety so important. First of all, we're talking about safety with yourself and safety with feeling your feelings. We are largely in a society that tells us, that reinforces us to not feel, to numb our feelings, to suppress our feelings, to distract ourselves from our feelings. But there's almost nowhere that gives us practice in actually feeling the feelings and giving us a map that makes it more manageable, especially if you're a sensitive person with lots of energy and lots of feelings. Okay, I said we would be looking at 3 tools for transformation, and it's actually more like 4, but we won't go in depth into those. My favorite tools for transformation are having an awareness in your body, which is called somatic awareness. Soma means body. EFT tapping really helps discharge energy from the body and get it moving. And we swallow our emotions and it gets stored and stuck in the body, in the meridians, in our energy field. So we can have the tools to help it move out for a million reasons. My favorite tool is the MAP method. The MAP method is a larger umbrella in which we can use these other tools. But with the MAP method, we are able to address, if I'm your practitioner, I'll be addressing your subconscious mind. Can be used on yourself. We can use it to address our own subconscious mind to give commands to the mind. Why I love using MAP is because it has a more thorough effect. So instead of just managing today's frustration and sadness, we can give a command to release it along the whole timeline and with any parts that are carrying that same emotion that you might be dealing with today. Parts. Now, we are not all schizophrenic, thank goodness, but we all have parts. And parts just means ourself at a younger age. There are a couple of different schools of parts, and some have fancy names. When I'm working with parts, it's primarily more just what is the age and what is that part up to. And we all have protector parts and parts that have had to escape and leave. We aren't going to do a deep dive into parts today, but when we've had younger experiences where we didn't feel safe, and I would say it's safe to say that all of us have had some experience with not feeling safe, whether it was at home or at school, in the neighborhood, at the church, etc. When we had emotions that we couldn't process when we were younger, because A, it was too scary, or B, we didn't have the tools, or there was too much that was piled on, those parts can still be carrying those emotions and that energy, which impacts our health. And it creates, the mind is always very busy and willing to give meaning to things. So say you had a busy mom. You could have a mom with postpartum depression. You could have a mom that got sick, was unavailable, but in your mind is very quick to assess the situation and give a meaning that feels true at the time, at that age, but perhaps is not true at all. So if our mother is absent, we might, as a young part, we might imprint a belief like, I'm not important, I'm not lovable, I'm alone, I have to do it myself. So the mind starts this process quite early. And why I love the MAP method is because we can give commands to your subconscious mind to treat and heal those younger parts. And sometimes we'll actually have a conversation with those younger parts. Okay, so let's see where we are. So somatic awareness means when you're having a feeling, can you connect it to a body sensation? Now, for those of us that were really traumatized, that are living only in the head, that don't have any connection to feelings and sensation, we start with coming down, breathing, noticing, beginning to feel sensation coming out of the head, just noticing shoulder tension, noticing breath, just to begin that transition from living just up to actually coming down into the body. There's a lot of different names for it. Everything now has so many different names and it means the same thing. So soma is body. And the next therapy that I love is called EFT tapping. EFT tapping gently taps on endpoints of specific meridians. Why I love it is it helps things to discharge faster and to get things moving. Meridians have different associated emotions. Let's not take the time to name all of those, but there are specific emotions, specific meridians. And as you are tapping, you're helping the body to discharge those emotions. Back decades, when we did tapping, we also included points along on the fingers, which are very important. We'll be covering the difference between the shortcuts and the more full effects available with EFT. Okay, so that's what we're going to cover today, and let's look at safety now and take a deeper dive. Some of us are comfortable feeling one or more feelings. Some of us are comfortable feeling no feelings. Let's map these feelings out. And if you've got paper there, might be useful to write these down. Primary feelings. There are other feelings, but most all feelings can fall under this category. Apathy. So under apathy, we have hopeless, helpless, powerless, despair, defeat. And these are things that you can feel certainly as an adult, but as a child, when you are unable to change your parents, change your surroundings, impact things that are toxic, unhealthy, unwanted, then we get that feeling of powerlessness or helplessness, hopelessness. And then later on in life, when we have an event that brings up those same feelings, it's going to pull in those feelings from the past and perhaps be overwhelming. That's why we want to be able to name the feeling, see where it is in the body, give the commands to clear it on the timeline. Sometimes we slow down and might do a little conversation in between there. What I love about MAP is it can be fast. Okay, safety. So let's look at the feelings. Apathy. Grief will include, of course, sadness, loss. Fear would include worry, concern, anxiety, all the way up to panic and terror. Shock is likely a fear emotion, but it also can just become freeze in the body. Okay, and then we have anger. So anger can just be annoyed, irritated, aggravated, or it can be angry, it can be rage, it could be wanting to kill. And then we also additionally want to check, is there shame or embarrassment or guilt? Okay. So when I ask you, what are you feeling about that? Now you have a map. And these fingers don't correlate to anything other than just a number. When I ask you, what are you feeling? Then now you can check. Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Okay. Now, in many families, anger wasn't allowed, or there was one person in the family that was really angry and perhaps dangerous. And so some people have this feeling like anger's bad. I never want to be like so and so. So I refuse to feel anger, right? But it's a normal human emotion. And I don't ask anybody to live in or stay in anger. But anger gives us power and strength to move, to take action. So it's important to allow anger. It can help us place healthy boundaries to say no. You might have some other adjectives in there depending on the event, right? Hey, I like to have fun while we're doing all this serious work. So laughter, cuss words, and humor are allowed in my world. Okay, so let's look at, I want you to think about and sense into what emotions are you comfortable having and not having. Anger is usually a polarizing one. What about fear? Like, okay, honestly, maybe most people just would not like to, maybe we'd never like to have a feeling again, but because we're human, we are going to have them. So let's keep going. Fear. Are you willing and able to just say, whoa, that was scary? And that's the beauty of this, is just being willing to like take that breath and say, this is scary. Helps it to discharge. When we're trying to push these emotions down, that's what actually gives them more power, and they get more backed up in the bodies. Grief. Honestly, this is my least favorite. I don't like to feel sad, grief, loss, but where's it going to get stuck if we don't? If life is bringing that and we don't feel it, then it's going to jam up the heart. So we want to keep our hearts open, right? What's your relationship to feeling sadness? Mine is like, please don't make me, but then I do it. And then hopeless. Now, why we're taking time with safety today is because I don't want to work with anyone that is so unable to tolerate a feeling that it's going to make them want to hurt themselves or take their own life or harm another, right? So if you need to grow your capacity to be able to tolerate these emotions, then we need to back up and do some work around just your relationship to feeling. And sometimes life throws us some really big or heavy situations. And, it just feels like, oh man, it doesn't feel like I'm going to be able to get over this or through this. And sometimes we feel like I don't want to be here. And so it's normal to have big feelings, but we want to be able to guarantee that I'm not going to harm myself or you. I'm going to be able to be with the feelings, big or small, breathe, and then use these tools to allow the energy, the beliefs to move, and those parts to heal. Okay, take a breath. The first time that I learned this map for emotions was in the 90s. I took a seminar called the Sedona Method and became an instructor. It was life-changing for me. I'm an emotionally sensitive, energetically sensitive woman, and I used to feel overwhelmed all the time. So just feeling that like too muchness and overwhelm. So when I took this class, the teacher asked, "What are you feeling?" When I said overwhelm, Hale Dwoskin, bless him, said, "That's not a feeling. If you're feeling overwhelmed, that's more than one feeling coming up at the same time and jamming the pipe. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, I want you to take a breath and say, okay, there's more than one feeling here. We're going to name them, and then we can release them and work with them separately if necessary to get that movement." Now, yes, you can have an overwhelmed nervous system. You can feel emotionally overwhelmed, but we want to break it down and name the feelings that are creating that overwhelm. Okay. And for me, it's usually, all right, I'll just say it. It's usually sadness and anger coming up at the same time. Like, I'm sad that this is happening and I'm pissed off at the person that's making it happen, something like that. So you may find that you have a kind of a consistent pattern that comes up, or maybe yours is more random. So I want you to pay attention and tune into yourself. Okay, what else do we want to look at today? When you get really comfortable working, being able to sit with your feelings, it opens up other doors. Now, if you're just beginning, you do not have to consider this. When you're just beginning, just identifying the emotion might be enough. Might be the, a huge step, right? But I worked with a client this morning that has done work for many years, and his company just let go thousands of personnel, and he was in that group. So he came to release the emotions that come up when you're unexpectedly let go of your job and you've got family to support, right? So we came in both willing to say, okay, let's see what's here. And because he's done so much work and he's intuitive and open on those spiritual planes, honestly, the first thing that came through was unresolved past lives. Now, you could call this unresolved inherited DNA stories. People have different beliefs about where it comes from. What I do know is that the body carries stories, and when we work with those, it creates a huge healing. So that past life story that came through had a direct correlation to the issue that this client was working with today. And in fact, it actually took him deeper into and gave even more insight to what he's wanting to release as he's, sending out resumes and moving forward. There was something additional. Yes. And then next layer that came from, as you sit with a feeling, sit with the body sensation, then it's almost like some people might experience as like traveling in a dream world, if you're visual, right? And if you're more body sensation oriented, you can travel that way through sensation. And this is where, if you're a newbie, you're going to be like, am I making this up? Is this real? So just say, trust what comes, trust what comes, trust what comes. And then eventually you will trust what comes, even though to regular society where we want things concrete, measurable, nail it down, it might feel, woo, oh my gosh, that was too wild and too weird. And so even though this is a basic class talking about safety, I want you to be aware that you can allow yourself to open up these doors in this way. I could tell you that it's unlikely that they'll open if you're not able to handle it. So you don't have to worry about that. But I do want to create that possibility of when we get really safe and we can really drop in, it's like, boom, the doors can open to a lot of information that we might not have expected. Hydration is important because our bodies are electrical and we need water too, and maybe even electrolyte water, because if we haven't absorbed the water, it's not doing as much good, right? So be hydrated when you're doing your work and doing your sessions. Okay, what else do we want to talk about today? I forget this one sometimes because I'm in the habit of speaking kindly to myself. This was something that when I studied with the diamond heart work, it's a beautiful body of work in San Francisco area. We did in the beginning areas of this program I was in, this deep dive into how we speak to ourselves. So if you're wanting to create safety with yourself and with your emotions, can you imagine if you have that inner critic that's saying, you're stupid, you're a failure, you're not, blah, 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 or you are, blah, 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 blah. That's going to really limit that element of safety. And that's a whole other thing, but it is something that we don't want to bypass. It's very important in foundational work to be aware of, what is that inner voice saying to me? How do I speak to myself? Are you willing to speak kindly to yourself? My answer is yes. I can use the kindness. I'm happy to have it. Let me see if there was something. Oh yeah. So when we were unraveling that, what's the inner critic's agenda? You start listening and feeling, what's this inner critic really saying and doing? And mine was like, hurry up, you're not getting enough done. Go, 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 you got to get more done. And I was like, oh my God. It actually boiled down to a sensation of like a dog biting my heels, chasing me. I was like, yeah, that's exhausting, right? So yours will be likely different than mine. But I want you to really, I'm probably giving you way too much to work on. So you can just pick one or two things where you're going to focus. But that inner critic needs to learn to be nice, and you need to train it to be nice. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we talked about, we're going to introduce 3 tools. Somatic awareness just means, where is it in the body? Okay. So if you're having a feeling like anger or sadness, then you go, where in my body do I feel that? Can I feel it in the body? And you drop, coming into sensation. Sometimes it's the throat, the chest, the belly, the shoulders. It can be in your fists, be anywhere. As just the intro to talking about somatic awareness, and especially as it relates to safety, is like, does it feel safe to breathe into my chest, into my throat? Then what am I going to find in there, right? What am I going to feel? Too bad they don't teach this stuff, when we're young, so that it doesn't feel so ominous later. But think about sensations that you might feel in your body. You might feel a tightness, tension. Anybody? You might feel a heaviness. Like responsibility often translates to heaviness on the shoulders. You might feel a pulling, and then you're with your body, you want to feel, okay, what is this pulling up, down, pushing in, pushing out? Is there a push feeling? And so the mind needs something to do. So when you're coming into sensation, we want to tell the mind, what don't I already know about this? What else can you tell me about it? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it big? Is it soft? Is it hard? Does it have a color? So when you're learning how to be present to body sensation, again, having that map to know, it's probably going to feel hard, tight, dark, or empty, actually. We talk about being in freeze, and sometimes freeze and shock can feel really empty. And for most of us, the first time we feel it, it's quite uncomfortable. It's like, whoa, so we need to breathe. and you can take a step away. You don't have to be, feeling the whole thing all at once. You can first notice, observe, take some breaths, start to get more and more comfortable with sensation. And what else about this? There's a whole body of work called somatic experiencing. It's been around, and Stephen Levine is probably the godfather, grandfather of somatic experiencing. And so to take it a step further, we would come into the energy that's carried in the body and allowing it to express, allowing it to move, seeing what that energy is, how it's moving, what it is doing. And there are some videos on this interesting, working with vets coming back, as you can imagine, from the war. PTSD would have a lot of unexpressed energy in the body. Somatic work, somatic experiencing is super powerful. In my sessions, it's usually fairly well contained and fairly easy to move through and heal, because I'm bringing in the map commands as we're working with those body sensations. Okay, what else do we want to say about body? Oh yeah. Our culture really encourages us not to feel. Can you watch a movie? I think I'm going to do it tonight. Sign up for the no commercials. Because what do our commercials show us? Food. Pizza, right? Juicy, greasy hamburgers. We're not talking some healthy snacks, right? And so it's can we numb our feelings and, have those visual encouragement, have you eaten a pizza lately, right? Okay, so our culture encourages us to get busy, to keep busy, to scroll, to watch, to do, to distract ourselves from our feelings, to invalidate our feelings, right? Oh my gosh. I think that's the thing that is the most, I'm going to say, challenging for me as a therapist, is people are so willing and ready to invalidate their feelings, to say, I shouldn't feel this, I shouldn't feel that. And when we invalidate it, it can't be discharged, just like the old saying goes, or the new saying, if a woman is upset, don't tell her to calm down, it'll make her escalate, right? But if you acknowledge that feeling, I see you're upset, then it allows things to soften, to open, and to move. And that's what we need to do with our emotions. It's it's scary right now. I'm afraid right now. Okay. And then some people build a whole personality around overcompensating from a feeling they think they shouldn't have, right? They build this whole personality I've got it all together, I'm competent, I'm brilliant. Whereas, and inside they may have this very insecure, not enough little person, male or female. So we want to feel safe enough to feel. And I'm not saying you want to go to your most important business meeting of the year and then take time to be starting to feel all your feelings. You want to do this probably in private, somewhere that's safe and quiet. And I really recommend, a night, if you're a person that's got a lot going on, to have a routine time, like before bed, in the morning, lunch break, whenever, to do an inventory. Okay, get it on paper. It's did anything happen this morning that's upsetting? Is there an ongoing situation? And then what you're going to do is identify the feelings: apathy, grief, fear, anger. Check for shame, embarrassment, or guilt. Notice if there's a body sensation. And then to have a map session for those commands to work. That's a whole process that you can see me for privately. We can set that up. We might even do it as a group. But today I wanted to cover being safe, creating safety within yourself, with feeling emotions, with feeling sensation. I remember when I first studied the Sedona method and I got this, gosh, I think it was early 90s, got this map. I just felt like, okay, I can be successful now because I have a map to be able to manage my sensitive feelings and to manage my life now. I just felt like it was made my life more manageable. So I hope this has helped you in a way or in many ways today. And in parting, let's see what else. So take a few breaths and just notice, what does it feel like in your chest or belly or throat? Notice which one you have more sensation in, chest, belly, or throat. Take a few breaths to settle. Okay, so for homework, what I want you to do is name which emotion you're most comfortable with and which one you're least comfortable with. Notice if you are comfortable in feeling sensations in your throat, in your chest, in your belly. And when you feel safe enough to be really present, you are giving yourself the biggest gift to be able to transform really most anything in your life. And from that place of presence, that's where you can manifest good, create goodness, because the heart is the more stronger at creating. And we want to come to that place of neutral and come to that place of presence when you're going to visualize the thing that you're wanting to bring more of in your life. So we have been around and covered many, many things today, but the takeaway here is, how safe do you feel with yourself, with feeling feelings, and with feeling your body sensations? Thank you for taking this time with me today and for yourself. Oh, I should introduce myself. I'm Ellen Light. I became a psychiatric nurse and started working with adolescents around 1980. And I've always been very interested in mental emotional health. But because of my background in nursing, I've always had that blend with the emotions and health. And health is a primary, natural health is a big, big interest for me. So clients come to me actually with chronic health issues, or chronic pain issues, and we can work with those with these modalities that we've been talking about today. So I've worked with clients for about 40 years, and the MAP method is rather new in the world, and I've done about 1,300 sessions of MAP, and I'm very excited to see how potent a tool that the MAP method is to use to clear things that we want to clear. What else do I want to share about myself? I come from a big Irish Catholic family on the East Coast, oldest girl. That upbringing in a small neighborhood where 3 generations of neighbors, and then moved to California for 40 years and traveled around, lived in different places and spaces. I've been blessed to really get to study with some of the most potent teachers on the planet, and some of them have recently died, and I'm realizing, okay, now I'm it's my turn to hold that place and to share the wisdom. So I'm very happy to share what has worked with me along my journey for mental, emotional, and physical health. And I'm wishing you many blessings today.